When my brother-in-law threw my plumbing tools into the pool and called me a grease monkey, I didn't flinch. I just smiled, dried my hands, and made one phone call. By Monday, I owned his company, and that was just the beginning of my plan. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in from the comments. Happy birthday to me, Victoria sang as she floated in the infinity pool, champagne flute in hand. The backyard of my brother-in-law's Malibu mansion shimmered under California sun, dozens of guests mingling with caviar on silver trays. I stood off to the side in my work clothes, still smelling of sewage from an emergency call that had delayed my arrival. My wife, Sarah, had begged me to change before coming, but I'd been too busy unclogging a backed-up sewer line at the elementary school to make it home first. "Look who finally decided to show up," Marcus said, appearing beside me with a smirk. He was wearing a crisp white linen suit that probably cost more than my truck. "The family grease monkey has arrived." He raised his voice so others could hear. "You know, some people actually have to work on weekends, but not our Dennis. He's too busy crawling through other people's shit." Laughter rippled through the small group that had gathered around him. Sarah's cheeks flushed crimson as she tried to steer Marcus away, but he pulled free and grabbed my toolbox from where I'd set it down. "Look at this," he said, holding up my wrench. "Real sophisticated tools for a real sophisticated man." He tossed the wrench into the pool with a splash. "Maybe the fish will appreciate your craftsmanship." I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched the tool sink to the bottom. "Marcus, that's enough," Sarah pleaded, her voice trembling. "Dennis works hard to provide for us." "Provide?" Marcus laughed. "He's a plumber, Sarah, a glorified janitor with a van. If he had any ambition, he'd be doing something that matters, something important like me." He gestured toward the mansion behind him. "I create jobs, I build companies, I move markets. What does your husband do? He unclogs toilets." A few guests chuckled uncomfortably. Sarah looked like she might cry. My nephew, who'd been watching from the edge of the pool, picked up one of my smaller tools and threw it after the wrench. "Yeah, Uncle Dennis, go unclog something." I finally spoke, my voice calm. "That toolbox cost me $1,200. It's professional grade. You just threw away a year's worth of my hard work." Marcus waved dismissively. "I'll buy you a new one. Consider it a birthday present from me to the grease monkey." He pulled out his wallet, peeled off a $100 bill and flicked it at my chest. "Here's a tip for your service." The bill fluttered to the ground between us. Sarah bent to pick it up, but I stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. "Don't," I said quietly. "Let it stay there." I looked around at the faces watching me, the smirks, the pity, the barely concealed amusement. These people had spent years looking down on me, assuming I was just some blue-collar schmuck who didn't measure up to their elite standards. Marcus's parents, who never approved of Sarah marrying beneath her. His business partners, who treated me like invisible help at these gatherings. Even Sarah's friends, who'd stopped inviting us to certain events because Dennis wouldn't fit in. I'd taken it all for 8 years. 8 years of being the butt of Marcus's jokes, of watching him hand Sarah business opportunities that I could have handled, of hearing him tell people I was lucky to have her. "Happy birthday, Marcus," I said, meeting his gaze directly. "Enjoy your party." Then I turned and walked away, leaving my toolbox at the bottom of the pool. The drive home was quiet. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Dennis," I tried to stop him. "I've told him over and over to respect you, but he just won't listen." "It's okay," I said, keeping my eyes on the road. "I've handled worse on the job." "No, it's not okay," she cried. "He treated you like dirt in front of everyone, again. And for what? Because you work with your hands, because you don't wear a suit and tie." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "I've got something to tell you," I said. Something I should have told you years ago. What is it? She asked, wiping her eyes, but I just shook my head. Not here, not now. Wait until we get home. When we pulled into our driveway, the modest two-bedroom house I'd bought cash 5 years ago, Sarah followed me inside, her anxiety palpable. I poured us both a glass of wine, something I rarely did, and led her to the study I'd converted from our second bedroom. "Dennis, what's going on?" she asked, her voice small. I opened the safe behind the bookshelf, the one she didn't know existed, and pulled out a thick manila folder. "For the past 15 years," I began, "I've been doing more than just unclogging drains and fixing leaks." Sarah stared at me confused. "When I started my plumbing business, I made a decision. I would work twice as hard as everyone else, save twice as much, and invest wisely. While Marcus was busy networking at country clubs and boasting about his latest acquisitions, I was building something real." I opened the folder and spread documents across the desk. Bank statements, stock portfolios, real estate deeds, business filings. Every dollar I earned I tracked meticulously. I lived frugally while building my business. While Marcus was spending money on fancy cars and designer clothes, I was buying undervalued properties and investing in promising startups. Sarah's eyes widened as she scanned the documents. "Dennis, these statements, this is millions of dollars." 23 million to be exact, I said calmly, "after taxes." She looked up at me, her face a mixture of shock and something else, realization perhaps. "All this time, you've been worth millions," I nodded. "I never told you because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have, and because I wanted to see who would treat me with respect when they thought I was just a plumber." Tears welled in her eyes again, but these were different tears. "I would have loved you no matter what," she whispered. "I know," I said gently, "and that's why I married you, but Marcus, he never saw past the coveralls and the toolbox." Sarah shook her head in disbelief. "So all those times he mocked you, you could have bought and sold his company 10 times over." "Not quite," I admitted, "but close. Marcus's company, Jenkins Holdings, has been struggling for years. He's been propped up by his investors, but the truth is, his business model is failing. His latest venture, a luxury water bottle company, called Aqualux," Sarah gasped. "That's the one he's been bragging about. He said it was going to be the next Tesla." I nodded grimly. "It's failing, badly. He's burned through $15 million in investor capital with almost no revenue. His investors are getting nervous, and that's where I come in." "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I picked up my phone. "I'm going to buy his company, not as an investor, not as a silent partner, but as the new majority shareholder. And then I'm going to fire him." Sarah stared at me. "You're serious?" "Deadly serious. I've been quietly acquiring shares in Jenkins Holdings for the past 2 years. Through offshore accounts, shell companies, everything completely legal but untraceable back to me. Tomorrow morning, I'm activating the final phase of my plan." "Why?" she asked. "Why go to all this trouble?" "Because today wasn't just about me," I said quietly. "Today was about you, about our marriage, about how he treats the woman I love. When he threw my tools in the pool, he wasn't just disrespecting me, he was disrespecting you for choosing me. And that's something I won't tolerate." Sarah reached for my hand. "What do you need me to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Just be ready for the fallout. This is going to get messy." The next morning I was in my office, the real office, not the fake one I maintained as a plumber, when my phone rang. It was Marcus. "Dennis, you left your toolbox at the party. Sarah said you wanted it back." "That's right," I said, checking my watch. "I have a big job this morning." "Figures," he snorted. "The grease monkey has to get back to work. Listen, I was thinking about what happened yesterday. Maybe I was a little harsh." "A little?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Look, I'll replace your tools. Better ones, top of the line, just, could you do me a favor?" What kind of favor? My company's having a bit of a cash crunch, he admitted, his voice suddenly serious. Nothing major, but I need to make payroll this week. If you could lend me $50,000, I almost laughed. You want me to lend you money? Hey, family helps family, right? I mean, you're always talking about how important family is. I agreed. And that's why I'm doing what I'm about to do. What are you talking about? Check your email, I said. You should be getting something important from your broker right about now. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard Marcus's voice shouting in the background. What do you mean I've lost control of the company? Who bought those shares? I waited patiently as Marcus processed the information. Dennis, he said finally, his voice shaking with disbelief. Did you? I did, I confirmed. As of 9:03 this morning, I own 51% of Jenkins Holdings, including your personal stake. You've been diluted out of your own company. This is impossible, Marcus shouted. How could you afford to buy that many shares? Let's just say I've been investing my plumbing money wisely for the past 15 years, I said calmly. While you were busy throwing my tools in pools, I was building an empire. And now, effective immediately, you're fired. You can't do this, he screamed. I'll fight you in court. You're welcome to try, I said, but you'll find that every transaction was perfectly legal. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run, and a first order of business. What's that? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I'm shutting down Aqualux, I said. That ridiculous water bottle venture was bleeding your company dry. We'll refocus on your core business, commercial real estate, and actually make some money. You don't know anything about business, Marcus yelled. I know enough to see when someone's been mismanaging a company into the ground, I replied. And I know enough to recognize when someone needs to be replaced. I hung up the phone and leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city skyline from my new corner office. It felt good, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stood up for myself. 2 days later, I received an email from Sarah. Marcus had shown up at their house, begging her to talk to me. He'd lost everything, his company, his credibility, even his country club membership. His investors had pulled out, and without Jenkins Holdings, he had no income. I met Marcus at a coffee shop downtown Neutral Territory. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dennis, he said, his voice hoarse, I need to talk to you. Go ahead, I said, sipping my coffee. I was wrong, he admitted. About everything. I treated you like dirt because I was jealous. You have something I'll never have, a wife who loves you unconditionally, a business you built from nothing, integrity. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm somebody, but you just are somebody. I nodded, saying nothing. Can you forgive me? He asked, his eyes pleading. Forgiveness isn't the issue, I said finally. The issue is whether you've learned your lesson. Do you understand now why treating people with respect matters? Not because of what they have, but because of who they are. He nodded slowly. I do, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. Good, I said. That's a start. He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Does this mean? No, I said firmly. You're still fired. Jenkins Holdings needs strong leadership, and right now that's not you. But I'm willing to offer you a position, entry level, no special treatment. You'll start at the bottom and work your way up just like everyone else. Marcus stared at me, stunned. You do that? I would, I said, but only if you understand this. You work for me now, not the other way around, and if you ever disrespect me or my family again, you're out, permanently. He swallowed hard. I understand. Then welcome to the team, I said, extending my hand. Your first day is Monday. Wear something practical. You'll be working in the field for the first 6 months. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I called Sarah. How did it go? She asked immediately. Good, I said. He's going to start Monday in the field. You're giving him a chance, she asked, surprised. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said, but they have to earn it just like I did. Sarah was quiet for a moment. You know, when I married you, I fell in love with the man who fixed my sink for free when I couldn't afford it. The man who worked all day and still made dinner for me. I never cared about how much money you had. I know, I said softly, and that's why I love you. We hung up and I walked toward my truck, the same beat-up Ford I'd been driving for years, the one Marcus had mocked so many times. It was dented and scratched, but it ran perfectly, just like me. A week later, I got a call from Marcus. He'd shown up for work in a designer suit, expecting to be given an office. Instead, he'd been handed a wrench and sent to unclog a backed-up sewer line at a construction site. "Dennis, this is ridiculous," he'd shouted over the phone. "I'm covered in sewage." "Welcome to my world," I said calmly. "Now get to work, and remember, respect isn't given, it's earned. One pipe at a time." I remember the first time Marcus met Sarah. We'd been dating for 6 months when I finally worked up the courage to introduce them. I was nervous not because I didn't think Sarah would like him, but because I knew immediately that Marcus would look down on me. I picked Sarah up in my truck, the same one I still drive today. When Marcus saw it, he wrinkled his nose. "You drive this thing. What is it, 20 years old?" "It runs," I said simply. "It's a piece of junk," he said, not even trying to hide his disdain. "How can you take my sister out in something like this?" Sarah tried to defend me. "Dennis fixed it up himself. It's actually in great condition." "Still," Marcus said, shaking his head, "a man should drive something that shows he's got his shit together, something with class." That was the first time, but it certainly wasn't the last. At every family gathering, Marcus found new ways to belittle my profession. When we got engaged, he pulled me aside. "Look, Dennis," he said, "Sarah deserves better than some plumber. She went to an Ivy League school. She could have married anyone. Are you sure you're good enough for her?" I just smiled and said, "I love her. That's all that matters." "Love doesn't pay the bills," he sneered. "And it certainly doesn't put food on the table. You're going to drag her down to your level." At our wedding, he gave a toast that was supposed to be funny but was actually quite cutting. "Here's to Dennis and Sarah, the princess and the plumber. May he never clog her drains, emotionally or otherwise." Everyone laughed except Sarah, who shot him a look that could have frozen lava. After we got married, Marcus's behavior only got worse. He'd invite Sarah to exclusive events, but not me. Dennis wouldn't fit in, he'd say. He'd be uncomfortable. Once, Sarah came home in tears because Marcus had convinced her to skip our anniversary dinner to attend some charity gala. "He said you wouldn't understand the importance of networking," she told me. "He said you'd be happier at home watching football." I just shrugged and said, "Go, I'll be fine." But inside, it hurt. Not because I wanted to go to some fancy event, but because my own wife was being manipulated into thinking I wasn't good enough. Sarah tried to stand up for me, but Marcus was relentless. "Dennis is just so common," he'd tell her. "You've got such refined tastes. How can you stand being with someone who works with his hands all day?" The worst part was that Sarah started believing him. She began dressing differently, talking differently, even changing her interests to match Marcus's crowd. She stopped inviting our old friends over because they weren't sophisticated enough. I watched the woman I loved slowly transform into someone else, someone who was ashamed of her husband's profession. But I never said a word. I just kept working, kept saving, kept investing. I'd started my plumbing business right after high school with a single truck and a toolbox I'd bought with money from mowing lawns. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. I took every job I could get, fixing leaky faucets, unclogging drains, installing new pipes. I worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. While Marcus was busy networking at country clubs and boasting about his latest acquisitions, I was building something real. I tracked every dollar I earned, saved religiously, and invested wisely. I read books on finance and business strategy while Marcus was out partying. When I got my first big break, a contract to service all the plumbing in a new apartment complex, I didn't splurge like Marcus would have. I reinvested every penny back into the business. bought better equipment, hired reliable employees, expanded my services. By the time I was 30, I had 5 trucks and a dozen employees. By 35, I was servicing commercial properties too, but I never upgraded my personal vehicle or bought a bigger house. I lived in the same modest 2-bedroom I'd bought when I first started the business. Sarah didn't understand why I didn't treat myself after all my hard work. "You deserve nice things," she'd say. "Why do you drive that old truck when you can afford a Mercedes?" "Because I don't need a Mercedes," I'd reply. "This truck gets me where I need to go." What she didn't know was that I was quietly building an investment portfolio that would eventually make Marcus's net worth look like pocket change. I bought undervalued properties, invested in promising startups, diversified my holdings across multiple sectors. I could have told her about it, could have shown her the bank statements, the stock portfolios, the real estate deeds. But I wanted to see how she would treat me when she thought I was just a plumber. I wanted to know if her love was conditional on my success. And then there was Marcus, the man who treated me like dirt simply because I didn't wear a suit and tie to work. The man who thought his MBA from Stanford made him superior to someone who actually built things with his hands. He'd built Jenkins Holdings from scratch, or so he claimed. The truth was that his father had given him the seed money, and Marcus had simply managed to not completely destroy it for the past decade. His company, Jenkins Holdings, was a commercial real estate firm that owned a handful of office buildings and retail spaces around Los Angeles. It wasn't particularly successful, barely breaking even most years, but Marcus loved to brag about it as if he'd built the next Blackstone. His latest venture was Aqualux, a luxury water bottle company that sold $150 bottles made from ethically sourced Himalayan crystal. It was the kind of ridiculous vanity project that only someone with no real business sense would pursue. I'd been watching Jenkins Holdings for years, quietly tracking its financials, noting its weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to strike. When Marcus started burning through investor capital on Aqualux while neglecting the core business, I knew my time had come. The day after the pool incident, I called my financial advisor, Richard. We'd been working together for over a decade, and he was one of the few people who knew the full extent of my wealth. "Richard, it's time," I said. "Activate the Jenkins Holdings acquisition." "I've been waiting for this call," he replied. "Everything's ready. The shell companies are in place, the offshore accounts are funded, and the legal team is standing by." "Good, execute phase 3 immediately." "Understood. By the end of business today, you'll control a majority stake." I hung up and walked to my real office, the one in downtown LA that no one, not even Sarah, knew about. It was on the 25th floor of a high-rise building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I'd leased the space under a different name years ago, using it as a command center for my investment activities. The walls were lined with monitors showing real-time financial data, market trends, and company performance metrics. I sat down at my desk and pulled up Jenkins Holdings financials. The numbers were even worse than I'd thought. Aqualux had burned through $15 million in investor capital with almost no revenue. The commercial real estate portfolio was underperforming, with several key tenants threatening to leave. Marcus had been lying to his investors, hiding the true state of the company while he pursued his ridiculous water bottle venture. His latest earnings call had been a masterpiece of spin, but the numbers didn't lie. I opened a secure channel to my legal team. "Confirm that all transactions are clean and untraceable back to me." "Absolutely," came the reply. "We've used multiple layers of shell companies and offshore entities. Even if someone traces the money, it will lead to dead ends." "Good. I want this to be a complete surprise for Marcus." I spent the next few hours reviewing the final details of the acquisition. My legal team had structured it as a hostile takeover, buying up shares on the open market and through private deals with disgruntled investors. By 9:00 a.m. the next morning, I owned 51% of Jenkins Holdings. The transaction was executed so quickly that Marcus didn't even realize what was happening until it was too late. When I called him, I could hear the panic in his voice as he processed the news. "This is impossible," he shouted. "How could you afford to buy that many shares?" "Let's just say I've been investing my plumbing money wisely for the past 15 years, I said calmly. "While you were busy throwing my tools in pools, I was building an empire. And now, effective immediately, you're fired." I hung up and immediately called an emergency board meeting. Technically, I was now the largest shareholder, which gave me significant influence over the company's direction. At the meeting, I laid out my plan to turn Jenkins Holdings around. First, we'd shut down Aqualux. That ridiculous water bottle venture was bleeding the company dry. Second, we'd refocus on the core business, commercial real estate, and actually make some money. The board members, mostly Marcus's cronies who had been riding his coattails for years, were shocked. "You can't just shut down Aqualux," one of them protested. "It's our future." "It's a money pit," I corrected him. "It's lost $15 million with almost no revenue. If we keep pouring money into it, there won't be a company left to save." "But Marcus built that company," another board member said. "He's passionate about it." "Passion doesn't pay the bills," I replied. "And neither does Aqualux. We're shutting it down immediately." The board reluctantly agreed, recognizing that I now held the majority stake and could do whatever I wanted. After the meeting, I called Sarah. "How did it go?" she asked. "Good," I said. "He's going to start Monday, in the field." "You're giving him a chance?" she asked, surprised. "Everyone deserves a second chance," I said, "but they have to earn it just like I did." The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. Marcus showed up for work on Monday dressed in a designer suit, expecting to be given an office. Instead, he was handed a wrench and sent to unclog a backed-up sewer line at a construction site. "Dennis, this is ridiculous," he shouted over the phone later that day. "I'm covered in sewage." "Welcome to my world," I said calmly. "Now get to work and remember, respect isn't given, it's earned, one pipe at a time." He didn't answer, just hung up. The next day he showed up again, this time in work clothes. He didn't say much, just followed the other plumbers around, watching how they worked. By the end of the week, he was actually doing some of the work himself. I checked in with his supervisor regularly. "He's not great," the supervisor told me, "but he's trying. He's actually listening and learning." I nodded. "Good, keep him in the field for now. No special treatment." Meanwhile, Sarah and I started rebuilding our relationship. Without Marcus's influence, she began to remember who she was and what she valued. She stopped trying to be someone she wasn't and started embracing her true self again. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, she turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Dennis. I let Marcus get inside my head. I started believing his lies about you." "It's okay," I said. "I understand why you did it. He's your brother and he's always been the golden child." "But that's no excuse," she said. "You've always been there for me through everything. You fixed my sink when I couldn't afford it. You made dinner for me after long days at work. You supported me when I lost my job. And I threw it all away because Marcus told me I deserved better." "You didn't throw it away," I corrected her. "We both got distracted, but we're back on track now." She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in years. "I love you, Dennis. Not because of how much money you have, but because of who you are." "I know," I said, "and that's why I love you." As for Jenkins Holdings, the company started turning around almost immediately. Without Aqualux draining resources, we were able to focus on the core business. We renovated several properties, attracted new tenants, and increased occupancy rates. Marcus, surprisingly, turned out to be a quick learner. After 6 months in the field, he moved into a management role, overseeing a team of plumbers. He wasn't great at first. He'd never done physical labor before, but he worked hard and earned the respect of his team. One day he came to my office. "Dennis, I need to talk to you." "Go ahead," I said. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, that respect is earned, not given. I've spent my whole life thinking that my name and my connections would get me wherever I wanted to go, but they didn't, not really." I nodded, saying nothing. "I've been a jerk," he continued. "To you, to Sarah, to everyone who didn't fit into my little world. I thought I was better than everyone else because I had money and went to a good school, but you've built something real, something that matters." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying thank you," he said. "Thank you for not just firing me and being done with it. Thank you for giving me a chance to prove myself. And thank you for showing me what real success looks like." I stood up and walked around my desk. "You're welcome, Marcus. But remember, this is just the beginning. You've got a long way to go before you've earned everyone's respect." He nodded. "I know, and I'm ready to work for it." As he left my office, I felt a sense of satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge or payback. This wasn't about getting back at Marcus for all the times he'd belittled me. It was about showing him that true success isn't measured by how much money you have or how fancy your job title is. It's measured by how you treat people, how you handle adversity, and how you earn the respect of those around you. I picked up my phone and called Sarah. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "Good," I said. "He's starting to understand." "Starting to," she laughed. "Give the man a break. He's only been working for you for 6 months." "True," I admitted. "But he's learning, and that's what matters." We hung up and I walked toward my truck, the same beat-up Ford I'd been driving for years, the one Marcus had mocked so many times. It was dented and scratched, but it ran perfectly, just like me. A week later, I got another call from Marcus. This time his voice was different, not angry or desperate, but calm and respectful. "Dennis, I've got a problem at the construction site," he said. "The main sewer line is backed up and I think there's a blockage in the main pipe. I've tried everything, but I can't fix it." "Okay," I said. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." When I arrived, Marcus was covered in mud, but he was working hard to fix the problem. "I think it's a tree root," he said. "It's pushed through the pipe and caused a major blockage." I nodded. "Happens all the time. Let's take a look." Together, we worked to clear the blockage. It was hard, dirty work, but Marcus didn't complain. He just did what needed to be done. As we finished, he turned to me. "You know, I never understood why you loved this job so much. But today, fixing something that was broken, making it work again. I get it now." I smiled. "Welcome to my world." If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.